The marketplace was full of noise, voices shouting, traders calling, footsteps moving in every direction. But in the middle of this busy place, one girl walked slowly, each step heavy, each movement painful. Her leg dragged behind her as if it belonged to another body, not hers. She was young, her face delicate, her eyes carrying a soft light, but her broken steps made people look at her with disgust. She had been born with a twisted limb. For her own people, that meant she was useless. They valued strength, speed, and beauty. She had none of it. And so, whenever she tried to pass through the market, whispers followed her. "Why does she even come here?" a woman muttered. "She should stay hidden," another voice said. "Such a waste," a man added with a cruel laugh. The girl lowered her head. She pretended not to hear, but every word stabbed her heart like a knife. She clutched the small bag in her hand tighter. Inside, only a few coins rattled the last of what she had. She wanted to buy bread, just enough to keep her stomach from aching at night. But when she reached the baker's stall, the man scowled. "Not you again," he said. "I don't sell to beggars." "I have coins," she whispered, showing her hand. "Keep your pity money," he spat. "Go ask someone else." She turned away, her throat dry, her eyes burning. Behind her, laughter rose. She walked faster, but her steps betrayed her. The limp slowed her down, and every movement looked awkward. She could almost hear the rhythm of her own weakness echoing against the stone road. And then someone noticed. A tall figure stood in the corner of the market, half hidden in shadow. His clothes were simple but strange, not like the flowing robes of the locals. His eyes, sharp and restless, followed the girl's broken steps. He was human, one of the rare outsiders who traveled this desert planet. Most people avoided humans, calling them dangerous, unpredictable, but this one stood silently, watching. The girl did not see him. She only wanted to escape the cruel voices. She limped down a narrow street, hoping the crowd would thin. But a group of children followed her, giggling. "Look at her legs," one shouted. "Can you even run?" Another mocked. They threw pebbles at her back, small stings that cut deeper than stones. Her heart pounded. She wanted to scream, but she had no strength. She pushed forward, each step heavier than the last. Finally, her foot caught against a loose stone. She stumbled and fell hard against the ground. Dust covered her clothes, and her coins scattered into the dirt. The children cheered. "She can't even walk." Tears filled her eyes as she scrambled to pick up the coins, but her hands shook. Her leg throbbed with pain, and her breath came in short gasps. Around her, people passed by without stopping. Some turned their heads away. Others simply ignored her, as if she did not exist. But one pair of boots stepped closer. The shadowed figure from the market had followed. The human bent down, his eyes calm, his hand reaching toward one of her fallen coins. He picked it up, wiped off the dust, and placed it gently in her palm. She froze. No one had ever done that before. Usually, they kicked her coins further away, laughing at her struggle. But this man, he didn't speak a word. He only looked into her eyes with something strange, not pity, not disgust, but recognition, as if he saw more than her broken steps. The girl's lips trembled. She wanted to thank him, but her voice stuck in her throat. She pulled her hand back quickly and tried to stand. Her legs shook and she nearly fell again. For a moment, the human's arm moved as if to help her, but he stopped himself. He simply watched, his face unreadable, his eyes sharp as if searching for something inside her. The girl finally managed to rise. Her heart raced faster now, not just from fear, but from confusion. Why had he helped her? What did he want? The children had gone, but the human still stood there, silent, watching. She turned and limped away as quickly as she could, clutching her coins to her chest. But in her mind, the image of his eyes burned. She felt both afraid and strangely safe. That night, when the marketplace grew quiet and the stars filled the sky, the girl sat in her small corner of the ruined street. She hugged her knees, her stomach empty, her body aching. Yet, for the first time in years, she remembered. The touch of kindness. Far away, on the other side of the square, the human stood again in shadow. His gaze never left her. He did not speak. He did not move closer. But something in his eyes promised that this was not the last time their paths would cross. The girl did not know it yet, but her broken steps had already led her into a story that would change everything. And tomorrow, the world would not look at her the same way again. The night came fast. The desert winds rose like whispers of ghosts, carrying sand across the empty streets. The girl sat on the edge of a broken wall, her thin arms wrapped around herself for warmth. The day had taken everything, her strength, her hope, even the little dignity she had left. The sound of cruel laughter still echoed in her ears, as if the marketplace voices followed her into the darkness. She closed her eyes, trying to forget. But hunger would not let her sleep. Her stomach twisted, crying louder than her own voice ever could. She pressed her hand against it, praying for silence, but the pain only grew sharper. Her coins, the last ones she had, slipped through her fingers earlier. She had found most of them in the dirt, but the baker's face burned in her memory, his rejection, his scorn. Even with money, no one wanted to serve her. To them, she was not a customer. She was a burden, an unwanted shadow. The streets were almost empty now. Only a few drunks stumbled out of taverns, their voices rough, their laughter sharp. The girl kept herself hidden in the corner, fearing their eyes. She knew what happened when the weak stayed too close to them. She had learned to survive by becoming invisible, but tonight, even the shadows seemed to turn against her. The wind howled louder, pushing cold sand into her face. Her body shook uncontrollably. She had no blanket, no roof. Just stone under her and sky above her. She whispered to herself, a broken whisper. Why was I born like this? Her words vanished into the night, carried away by the wind far across the square. The human stood again. He had followed her, but not too close. He leaned against the wall of an abandoned building, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on her small figure. The desert night did not scare him. What held him still was not the cold wind, but the fragile girl who seemed ready to break under it. He had seen many things in his travels, wars, starving colonies, ruined cities. But there was something different here. This girl's fight was not against armies or machines. It was against her own people's cruelty. The girl did not see him. She curled into herself, her face hidden between her knees. Tears streaked down her dusty cheeks, and her lips trembled. No one had ever chosen to sit beside her. No one had ever asked her what she needed. She had learned to expect nothing. But tonight, the emptiness around her felt heavier than ever. A sudden sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Heavy, careless, moving closer. The girl froze, her heart racing. Shadows grew longer as two men appeared, their eyes glinting in the faint torchlight. Well, look what we have here, one sneered. A little cripple, all alone at night, the other laughed. Her blood turned cold. She tried to stand, but her leg betrayed her. She stumbled, grabbing the wall for support. The men moved closer, circling her like wolves. Got any coins? One asked, his voice sharp. She's hiding something, the other said. Check her. The girl shook her head desperately. No. I have nothing. Her voice cracked like glass. The men ignored her. One reached out, trying to grab her arm. She pushed back against the wall, trembling, her breath fast and shallow. She wanted to scream, but no sound left her lips. And then another sound. A deeper step. Firmer. The men turned. The human was walking toward them, slow and steady, his shadow stretching across the sand. His eyes locked on the two men, and for a moment, silence swallowed the street. The girl's heart stopped. Why was he here? Why was he coming closer? The men exchanged uneasy glances. They had heard stories about humans unpredictable, dangerous, too strong for their size. But their pride forced them to stand tall. This is none of your business. One spat. Walk away, off-worlder, the other growled. The human didn't answer. He only kept walking, step by step, until the distance between him and the girl was almost gone. His hand moved slowly to his side, not drawing a weapon, not raising a fist, just resting there as if promising that if needed, he would act. The wind screamed around them, throwing sand into everyone's eyes. The girl pressed herself against the wall, her whole body shaking. She couldn't understand. Why was he here again? Why was he standing between her and the danger that her own people had thrown at her? The men hesitated. For the first time, their laughter faded, and in that breath of silence, the girl realized this night was not like the others. This night, someone had chosen not to leave her alone. The morning sun rose, but it brought no warmth for her. The girl sat quietly near the edge of the market, her body still weak from the long night. Her eyes were swollen from tears, her throat dry, and her broken leg still ached with every movement. She wished the world would just let her pass unseen. But the world was never that kind. The marketplace was, already alive with voices, and soon whispers began again. People noticed her, their eyes sharp, their mouths cruel. Some shook their heads, as if her very presence spoiled the air. Why is she still here? Someone muttered. She should hide, another hissed. She is cursed, a woman whispered, pulling her child away. The girl lowered her gaze. She wanted to disappear, but her steps betrayed her weakness. As she moved forward, the sound of her limp echoed louder than any voice. Each step felt like an announcement. Look at her failure. And then the voices grew bolder. A group of young men blocked her path. Their eyes glittered with amusement, as if tormenting her was the only entertainment they needed. Well, if it isn't. The cripple again, one sneered. Still dragging that leg? Surprised you haven't fallen flat on your face yet. Another laughed. Her hands tightened around her small bag of coins. She tried to step around them, but they shifted, cutting off her path. The crowd nearby noticed, but no one intervened. Instead, they gathered slowly, forming a ring of eyes around her. The young men circled closer. What do you think she even eats? Begged scraps? Maybe she waits for pity, another said. Or maybe she sells what little she has, the cruelest one whispered. His words heavy with poison. The girl's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body betrayed her. Her legs trembled, her throat refused to release sound. Then she heard it, a familiar step. Steady, controlled, cutting through the noise of the crowd. The human was there. He stepped forward, his tall frame rising above the circle. His face was calm, but his eyes were like steel. He looked at the young men as if they were nothing more than insects crawling too close to fire. For a moment, silence fell. Even the crowd, so eager to watch cruelty, hesitated. No one had ever stepped in before. No one had ever stood between her and their laughter. One of the youths smirked, trying to cover his unease. Stay out of this, off-worlder. She belongs to us. Yeah, another added. She's nothing. Why defend her? The human said nothing at first. His silence was heavier than words. He only shifted his stance, his shadow falling across the girl. For the first time in her life, someone stood in front of her, not to block her, not to push her, but to protect her. The crowd began to murmur. Why is he helping her? A human? Protecting the cripple? This is strange. The young men grew restless. Their pride clashed with their fear. One of them spat on the ground. She's worthless. Move aside. The human finally spoke. His voice was quiet but sharp. Touch her, and you will regret it. The words cut through the air like a blade. The crowd gasped. No one had expected a stranger, a human no less, to speak for her. The young men hesitated, their smirks fading. They had heard stories about humans, how they fought, how they never backed down. But pride was dangerous. The leader of the group stepped forward, trying to prove himself. He raised his hand toward the girl, daring to test the human's warning. The girl's heart stopped. She had never seen anyone defend her. She wanted to tell him not to risk it. Not for her, but no words came. The human's eyes narrowed. His body shifted ever so slightly, ready. The tension was so sharp the air itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, just as the leader's hand moved closer, the human caught his wrist in a single swift motion. The boy gasped, pain flashing across his face as the human's grip tightened. Like iron, the crowd erupted in shocked cries. The girl's eyes widened. She had seen cruelty her whole life, but she had never seen strength used to protect her. For the first time, the crowd's laughter was silenced, not by her suffering, but by someone else's courage. The human released the boy's wrist suddenly, pushing him back with a controlled force that sent him stumbling into his friends. None of them dared step forward again. The human turned his head slightly, his voice low, but everyone heard it. Enough. The marketplace fell quiet. Even the whispers died. The girl stood frozen, her heart racing. She had no idea why this man, a stranger, an outsider, had chosen to defend her. But she knew one thing. The cruel crowd would never look at her the same way again. And for the first time, she wondered, was she truly worthless, or had someone finally seen her worth? The crowd had scattered, but the silence it left behind was heavier than any noise. The girl stood trembling, her weak legs shaking under her weight. For the first time in her life, someone had defended her, and it confused her more than the cruelty ever did. The human didn't look back at the people who had mocked her. He only looked at her. His eyes were not soft, not gentle, yet not cruel either. They were steady, sharp, like a soldier who had decided on something. She clutched her bag of coins tightly, her breath shallow. Her heart wanted to run, but her body couldn't. And then he spoke. "You cannot stay here tonight." The girl blinked. No one had ever told her to leave for her own safety. Usually they told her to leave because they hated her. His tone was different. I have nowhere to go," she whispered. The human didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced around the marketplace, his jaw tight. The stares of strangers still burned from every corner. Their whispers had not ended. They had only gone quieter. Finally he said, "Then you will come with me." Her breath caught in her throat. Come with him? A human? The very people her kind called dangerous, wild, untrustworthy. She stared at him, her thoughts colliding with fear. "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I can't. People will say." "People already say," he interrupted. His voice was calm, but final. She froze. His words cut through her excuses. It was true. They already called her cursed. They already rejected her. What more could they take from her? Still, her heart raced. Could she trust him? Why was he helping? What did he want? He saw the hesitation in her eyes. Slowly, he crouched to her level, his voice quieter now. "If I meant to harm you, I would not have stopped them," he said. The girl swallowed hard. His words were simple, but they struck her. She remembered his hand catching the boy's wrist, the way the crowd had stepped back, the way he stood between her and danger. No one had ever done that. Her lips trembled. "Why me?" The human did not answer. Instead, he straightened and began to walk, not looking back. After a few steps, he stopped. Without turning, he said, "Follow if you want to live through the night." The girl's hands shook. Every part of her screamed that she should not. Yet her legs moved anyway. She followed, each broken step echoing louder than her fear. They walked through winding streets until the marketplace disappeared. The air grew colder, quieter, away from the noise and cruelty. The human finally stopped at the edge of the city. Near a small abandoned structure built of stone. It was broken, roof half gone, walls cracked, but it was shelter. The desert winds could not cut through all the way. The girl stared at it, then at him. This is your home?" she asked softly. The human shook his head. "Temporary. Enough for the night." He stepped inside first, his shadow falling across the dusty floor. The girl hesitated at the entrance, her chest rising and falling quickly. Was this a trap? Would he close the door and leave her alone again? Her heart screamed with doubt, but her body ached with hunger and cold. Finally, she stepped inside. The stone walls blocked the wind, and for the first time in weeks, she did not shiver. The human placed a small pack on the ground. From it, he pulled a wrapped piece of bread. He broke it in half and handed the larger piece to her without a word. The girl froze. Her hands hovered in the air, afraid to take it. "For me?" she whispered. "For you," he said simply. Her throat tightened. She reached out slowly, as if the bread might vanish. When it touched her fingers, her whole body shook. She ate carefully at first, then faster, tears stinging her eyes. The taste was plain, but to her it felt like life itself. The human watched. Quietly, his face unreadable. He did not mock her hunger. He did not ask for thanks. He only sat still as if waiting. Finally, when her hand stopped shaking, he asked, "What is your name?" The girl looked up, startled. No one had asked her that in years. Most people only called her cripple or worse. She whispered it, barely loud enough to hear, afraid to even share it. The human nodded once, repeating her name softly, as if committing it to memory. The girl hugged her knees, her mind racing. For the first time, she was in a shelter where no one mocked her, but trust was a dangerous thing. Could she trust him? Why had he chosen her out of all people? Her eyes drifted shut from exhaustion, but her heart did not rest. She did not know that outside, in the dark desert night, shadows still moved. Rumors of a human protecting the cripple girl had already spread, and some people did not plan to let it continue. The girl woke up to silence. For a moment, she forgot where she was. No mocking voices, no cruel laughter, no cold wind biting at her skin. Only the faint crackle of fire and the quiet sound of steady breathing nearby. Her eyes opened slowly. Across the broken shelter, the human sat with his back against the wall. His arms were folded, his eyes half closed but still alert. He hadn't slept. He had kept watch through the night. For her chest tightened. Why would anyone do that for her? Even her own people never cared if she froze in the dark. She tried to sit up, her broken legs stiff and heavy. The movement made a small sound, and instantly his eyes opened. Sharp, alert, scanning. When he saw it was her, his gaze softened, just slightly. "You're awake," he said. His voice was calm, but not distant. The girl hugged her knees. She wanted to thank him, but the words stuck. No one had ever stayed for her before. No one had ever shared food, shelter, or safety. She didn't know how to speak when kindness came instead of cruelty. Finally she whispered, "Why? Why are you helping me?" The human didn't answer at once. He looked into the fire, the flames dancing in his dark eyes. After a long pause, he said, "Because you are alive. And that should mean something." Her breath caught. Alive. The word felt heavier than her entire past. To her people, she was nothing but a burden. But to him, being alive was reason enough. She shook her head, her voice trembling. "No one else thinks so." "Then they are blind," he replied firmly. The girl stared at him. No one had ever spoken like that about her. His words felt dangerous, almost impossible to believe. But her heart wanted to. Slowly, she opened her hand. Inside was the small bag of coins. she had saved through pain and humiliation. She pushed it toward him. "Take this," she whispered. "It's all I have. I don't know what you want, but if you give me food and let me stay, you can have it." The human looked at the coins, then at her. His face hardened. "I do not want your coins," he said flatly. "Then, what do you want?" For the first time, he leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "I want you to stop thinking your life has no worth." The girl froze, her hands shook. Tears pricked her eyes, but she didn't want to let them fall. She had never heard such words, not from family, not from strangers, not from anyone. She turned her face away, ashamed. "You don't understand. I am broken. I can't walk right. I can't work like others. People look at me and see nothing." The human's voice cut through her despair like steel. "I see you." Her breath hitched. Slowly, she looked back. At him. His eyes didn't waver, didn't mock. For the first time, she believed someone truly meant it. Her heart raced. She wanted to trust him, but fear clawed inside her chest. Trust always ended in pain. Before she could speak again, a noise echoed outside, the crunch of footsteps on stone. The human's head turned sharply toward the doorway. His hand moved instinctively toward his side, where a weapon might rest. Girl stiffened. "Someone's here." He raised a hand, signaling her to stay quiet. His eyes narrowed, focused, listening to the movement outside. Shadows flickered at the entrance. Voices whispered, low and threatening. "This is where they're hiding. The human protects her. He'll pay for it." The girl's blood ran cold. They had followed them. The cruel whispers had spread through the city, and now danger had found its way to their only shelter. The human stood slowly, his tall figure blocking the doorway, his voice calm but edged with iron. "Stay behind me." The girl's heart pounded. She realized in that moment, her life, fragile and broken as it was no longer hers alone. Someone had chosen to stand for it. Someone had chosen to fight for it. And as the shadows closed in, she finally understood. Trust was no longer a choice. It was survival. Asterisk, the night had been quiet, too quiet. But now the silence broke like glass. Heavy footsteps scraped against stone, voices whispered with anger, and shadows moved outside the broken shelter. The girl clutched her knees, her body shaking. Fear pressed against her chest like a heavy stone. She had always run from danger before, always hid until the cruelty passed. But this time, there was nowhere to run. The human stood tall at the doorway, his frame a wall between her and the darkness outside. His eyes narrowed, scanning every shadow. He did not look afraid. He looked ready. "Come out, off-worlder," a rough voice called. "We know you're hiding her. She is cursed," another hissed. "Give her up, or you'll pay the same price she should have paid long ago." The girl's throat tightened. Her people had always rejected her, but hearing them speak about her death as if it was nothing tore her soul apart. She whispered, her voice trembling, "They'll hurt you because of me." The human did not turn his head. His voice was low, steady, unshaken. "Stay behind me." The words struck her like a shield. He wasn't leaving. He wasn't handing her over. He was choosing to stand. Outside, more voices gathered. The crowd was growing. The sound of stones clattering against the ground echoed closer, as if they prepared to storm the shelter. The human finally stepped forward, into the open. The torchlight revealed his sharp features, his calm expression. He raised his hand slowly, not in surrender, but in warning. "She is under my protection," he said. His voice carried like thunder in the night. The crowd jeered. "A human thinks he can order us? She is worthless. Step aside. She belongs to no one." The human's eyes burned with quiet fire. "She belongs to herself. And if you try to harm her, you will face me." The words stunned even the girl. Her heart pounded wildly. No one had ever spoken like that for her. No one had ever claimed her life had value, but the crowd was not moved by words. One man lunged forward with a stone, throwing it hard. The human moved swiftly, catching it with one hand before it could strike. He dropped it to the ground. The sound sharpened the silence. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Strong," someone muttered. "Dangerous," another hissed, but fear only fed their anger. More men stepped forward, weapons and handsticks, stones, blades carved from scrap metal. They surrounded the shelter, their eyes burning with hate. Inside, the girl's hands trembled. She wanted to shout, to beg them to stop, but her voice failed her. She pressed herself against the wall, watching the human stand alone against many. Her heart screamed one thought: he cannot fight them all. The human's stance shifted, his muscles tense, ready. He looked like a lone soldier about to face an army. His eyes did not waver. His voice cut through the rising chaos: "Leave now, or you will regret it." But the crowd only roared louder. The girl covered her ears as the first man charged forward, raising a blade. The human moved faster than her eyes could follow. The clash of metal and flesh echoed in the night, the crowd surging with shouts of rage. She shut her eyes tight, tears running down her face. She had never wanted anyone to suffer for her. Yet here he was, risking everything. For her. The battle had begun, and as the crowd closed in, she realized something terrifying. If he fell tonight, she would not only lose the only person who had ever defended her, she would lose her only chance at life. The ground shook with the noise of the angry crowd. Torches burned bright, shadows danced like monsters on the cracked walls, and voices screamed for blood. The girl pressed herself against the corner of the shelter, her body trembling, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear. Through the smoke and the chaos, only one figure stood between her and the world that wanted her gone. The human. He had no army, no shield, no promise of safety. Yet he stood as if the fire itself feared to touch him. The mob roared, "Give her up. She is worthless. She doesn't deserve life." The human raised his hand, silencing them with his voice alone. Calm, strong, clear. "Then listen. If you must take a life tonight, take mine." The crowd froze. Even the torches seemed to flicker lower. The girl's breath stopped in her chest. He stepped forward, placing himself fully in the open, away from the shelter's shadows. His back was straight, his eyes unflinching. "She has suffered enough. If her life means nothing to you, then strike me instead. But know this: if you kill me for protecting her, the galaxy will remember your cruelty." The girl's eyes widened. Tears blurred her vision. No one had ever chosen her over themselves. Not family, not strangers, no one. And now this human, who owed her nothing, was willing to pay with his own life. The crowd shifted uneasily. Fear crept into their anger. Stories of humans had traveled across the stars, how they never bent, how they never surrendered, how they remembered everything. To strike him down would mean carrying the shame forever. Whispers rippled. Why risk his life for her? Maybe she matters. Maybe we were wrong. The leader of the mob clenched his fists, rage burning in his eyes. But even he hesitated. The human's gaze locked on him like a blade, daring him to step closer. No one moved. The girl's heart beat painfully. She crawled forward, her weak legs dragging her across the stone, until she reached the human's side. Her hand trembled as she touched his sleeve. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Please, don't give your life for mine." He finally looked at her. His eyes softened not with pity, but with something stronger. "I am not giving my life," he said. "I am giving you a chance to live yours." The words struck her like fire. Something inside her, long buried beneath years of rejection, flickered back to life. Hope. The silence grew heavier. The mob, once loud and cruel, now stood divided, afraid, uncertain. No one dared to take the first step against him. Finally, One torch dropped to the ground, then another. The circle broke. One by one, they turned away, muttering, avoiding his eyes. Until the crowd was gone. The desert night was quiet again. The girl's body shook as she clung to his sleeve, tears falling. Freely. She whispered, broken but alive. Why me? Why would you choose me? The human knelt down, meeting her eyes. His voice was firm, carrying no doubt. Because you are not worthless. You are not broken. You are alive, and that is enough. Her. Tears fell harder, but this time they carried no shame. For the first time, someone had truly seen her, not her weakness, not her weakness, not her rejection. Only her. The human stood again, offering his hand. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she took it. Her broken steps no longer felt so heavy, and as they walked into the quiet night together, she knew her life had changed forever. She had been disabled, alone, rejected by everyone. Until one human chose not just to defend her, but to connect with her. And that choice had turned her story into something no one could ever erase.